Listeners, have you ever felt like your creativity is blocked, but you know the problem isn't your ideas, your schedule, or even your writing practice? Well, if that's the case, what if your nervous system holds the key to unlocking the stories inside you? In today's episode, I'm joined by Jay DeMaio, a trauma aware internal martial arts teacher based in Charlottesville, Virginia, that I have the privilege of calling my friend. Jay holds a 5-year certification in QiGong, Qi healing, and internal alchemy meditation, and has spent over 15 years studying directly with Taoist masters from the Dragon Gate and Mount Ame lineage schools. Together, we explore how Qigong, a gentle meditative movement practice, can enhance creativity, help regulate your nervous system, and bring your body into deeper harmony so you can write with more flow and greater ease. We also dig into my struggles with rest and boredom when doing things I know are good for me, but that I resist. And because Jay generously shares a practice you can use to connect deeper with your creative energy, this is a great one to watch on YouTube. But if you're listening elsewhere, you will get everything you need. Either way, grab your pen, open your heart, and get ready to discover why slowing down might be the medicine your writing life truly needs. Welcome to Writing Your Resilience, a podcast for writers who want to create stories that change lives, especially their own. I'm your host, Lisa Cooper Ellison. As a writer and trauma-informed writing coach, I'm here to guide you on a transformative journey through the art of writing, self-discovery, and resilience. Each week, I'll share my best tricks, tips, and strategies to help you write more authentically, craft deeper, truer stories, and overcome the common storytelling roadblocks we all face. Together, we'll explore how to bounce back when life gets tough and stay connected to your inner calling. So grab your pen, your notebook, and an open heart. It's time to do the work that changes the world, one story at a time. Welcome, Jay. I am so excited to have you on the podcast. It is so great to see you today.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, I'm really excited because we are going to talk about Qigong and how this practice can enhance your creativity. And I'm a really big proponent of this because, there is the practice that we have when we're writing. So, listeners, you may be thinking, okay, well, writing is about what we do on the page, but there is so much we need to do with our energy, with our minds, with our nervous systems that supports our creativity. And Jay is going to help us do that today. So, Jay, here's where I'd like to start. Can you tell us what Qi is, also what Qigong is?
So, I don't know if we have a week to talk about that to start, but what I would like to start by saying before even getting to Chi is that I have so much gratitude for being on the podcast. Thank you for having me. And also, I want to say that before we get to the conversation about Chi, we should also go into the resources of Chi, meaning the origin of where we find calmness, energetic vitality in our life. And I'd like to name mine to start off with, one being nature itself and just the immersion that we have an opportunity to be in every day, and the gratitude for that, and also the gratitude for our friends and family I can name as resources for myself, my beautiful children, Ailani, who's 2, and Kiara, who's 10, and my wife, Sophia, who supports this work and allows me to have time to do podcasts and be with you and talk about Chi even. So from that level, we create a foundation of resources from which the Chi, or generally, and I don't want to define Chi as one thing or another, there's thousands of ways to define Chi, but generally, I want to say that it takes a strong foundation, a building of that foundation to be able to even access Chi. That's the part of the Qigong and Chi that is really important to have a safe, calm foundation to even begin to access that Chi.
And what I love is that just the way you're speaking about this is slowing me down and getting me in the moment and allowing me to be grateful for all of the people who support my practice, my husband, my cats who serve as my spirit guides at different times, the beautiful nature, the mountains that I see outside my window. And yeah, so there's so much that we can bring into this practice. And as we have this conversation about Qi and Qigong, I'm going to slow myself down a little further because I usually ask people this question at the beginning, and we're going to backtrack to it, which is, what would you like us to know about you and your practices?
Yeah. Well, for one, I'd like you and your listeners to know that I'm an ordinary being, human being who goes through struggles and goes through joy, and I'm learning every day a little bit more and more about how to titrate, how to pendulate from these states in a more balanced way. And I think for me, part of qigong and what that's done is it's really helped me learn to be able to go from one maybe extreme state of even joy or extreme state of suffering and come back in the center with more ease. So yeah, and just going back to the gratitude of being able to access the qi, having methods that we can, as qigong practitioners, we can transform internally from these states with a lot more ease, and have a lot more fluidity in our, not only our nervous system but our whole being.
You have been practicing this for 15 years now. Is that correct?
I would say professionally, but before that, I explored yoga in my early 20s and explored some qigong forms, but I really didn't get serious until about, I would say, 2007 or so, when I was, I had read in books and a lot of yoga text, and keep calling on the teacher and they will appear in your life. And that's what I was doing, looking for a qigong teacher. And of course my teacher was right around the corner in an office building I was working in. He happened to be right around the corner there, not surprisingly. And then I started to really dig deep into the practices and realize this is something I could really serve clients with if I continued, and that's what I've been doing.
So, how has this transformed your life and the way you work with other people?
Well, I would say, generally speaking, the ability that I have, of course, this is me now comparing myself to me in my 20s and younger. Overall, the ability to transform a state, a frequency, a vibration, an emotion, a feeling, to be able to have some kind of agency over transforming those states on a daily basis is really, really what it's done to, for my life. And I think when we do that, especially as parents, we're able to then emanate that transformation out. So if I'm, let's say, in a state where I have a little bit of anxiousness, I've got to get kids to school. If I take 5 minutes to resource myself with chi, and then I come back into that same situation, my kids are calmer. Ideally, it's more fluid. Everything is working harmoniously toward, getting the kids to school or whatever I'm doing. So everything from those little things in life to, I know we've talked about this before, just before the show, applying qigong and some of these methods to cancer. I was diagnosed in 2014 with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and so I did apply qigong methods to work with how to transform the cancer. So I worked with a qigong master, and it's 2025, and I'm not clear about what the definition of a cure is or not being cured, but I'm still here. So
Yeah.
I've applied it in a lot of different ways. Mostly, daily is where I'm seeing the results, when I take time in the mornings to give myself that resource, to take time to harmonize inside, and then the day seems to be more harmonious as well.
Yeah. And I love how you're talking about this concept of harmony, right? And harmonizing our energy inside us. And I would say, because I have the privilege of knowing you in person, there's so many people that I only know online just because of the job that I have, but I get to know you in person. And I would say that you are not just here, but you are here vitally, right? You have this vitality about you in addition to this incredible piece that I have had the privilege of experiencing.
So it's interesting that you're using the word harmony when we're talking about whatever we perceive harmony is. Probably non coincidentally, if we break the word down in harmony, there is half of the word says harm. And then if we have the whole word, there's harmony.
Yeah.
And that word also in Chinese characters was related to wind. What is that relation of wind to our body? That's the relationship to the lungs, right? So the lungs, they have the potential to create harmony, also have a potential, like wind, to get disharmonious as well and create harm in our own body. How we're breathing, harm in a way that we're not able to stay calm. Not that we're doing it intentionally or anything like that, but that whole idea of the lungs being related to our connection out to the exterior world. The lungs come up through and out the mouth. It's the only that only yin organ we say it's connected to the outside world. So this gives us the connections and the ability to breathe in and breathe out, connect, not to disconnect, but separate when we want to. And so in that way, Qigong creates this more harmonious state through the breath. And that's how the Qi kind of resides and kind of flows with the breath. I don't want to define it as the breath itself or as air, but it flows and moves with the air, with the lungs. And ideally, that state creates harmony. So the character for Qigong, one of the characters for Qigong, is the symbolism is grass over a symbol for harmony and then over a symbol for joy. So what does this mean? Well, the first part of the symbol grass represents a strong life energy or life force, like an essence, like the foundation. Grass is a strong energy, like weeds. If you pull it out, it grows, it comes back really fast. A strong life energy it contains. And then the middle part, harmony, is exactly what I was talking about with the lungs and the vibrations in the middle between two separate qualities. So the lungs expand and contract, and they harmonize our body's energy. And then the bottom character is joy. So where do we find joy? We find joy when we feel harmony inside our body. And so in Qigong, we're always working with these three levels. The life force, the kind of like the foundation. In Chinese, I'll say the Chinese words if some listeners understand the Jing. The harmony is the level called the Qi level. The joy is kind of the spirit, is the Sin level, or sometimes pronounced Shin. And so from a Qigong medicine perspective, we're always working with these three together. They're moving together in harmony in Qigong. And ideally, we're able to cultivate in a state that sustains all three of these. So the grass, a good physical life energy. The harmony is a good balance, able to fluctuate between heaven and earth. In Qigong, it's called, or fluctuating in and out of states of consciousness or awareness, easily with fluidness, easefulness. And then the joy part is the spirit will stay generally joyful. Overall, if we have those two foundations of the life energy and the harmony, we can sustain a easeful mood as well. So that's the three treasures of Qigong. Sometimes they'll be referred to, and so that's what we're cultivating, and that's in the context of medicine as well. That these medicines are cultivated within us. We basically transform the Qi. We have to transform the Qi so it works inside of us in this way with harmony, joy, and then that life essence strengthens. So that's kind of a quick overview of the way that medical Qigong works. The issue with it a lot of times is that people just don't have the method. They need the method, which we'll do a 5-minute way to acquire a simple method later on in this podcast. But if there's access to the method, there's access to the deeper medicine and the way to use that medicine. And so that's what generally I'm teaching in the classes and really encouraging people to be aware of, that their medicine is available inside them and outside of them. And it is the best and most abundant medicine. And there's no need to go out looking for external medicine. We have basically 80% of the people, the population are, 80 to 100%. I'm being a rough estimate here. I don't know. We could guess so many people thinking that I have to go to get a pharmaceutical, get some herbs, take something from outside of my body to solve something inside of my body, when
Yeah.
there's access to the life force, the harmony, and the joy if we have the method to transform that. And when we bring those medicines into the body and know how to use that in the body, then that becomes the powerful medicine. In Qigong, we call it the most powerful. The most powerful medicine we have is already available, and it's free.
And free is always good.
Right. That's really been what I've been focusing in my classes and workshops, and empowering people to be aware that there is this much potency in the medicine of Qigong. And so once you have access to that and agency to use a medicine like that in a way that supports you, there's so much more. We can get into the creativity a little more in a minute, but creative flow then begins to come out.
Yeah, and what that's getting me to think about is, I'm so glad that you started with the lungs, because the lungs are very important to me. I grew up as a severe asthmatic, almost died several times from having severe asthma attacks. And I have an interesting relationship to my lungs. And what I would say, as a person who has experienced significant trauma, and also someone who works with people who have experienced significant trauma, is that when we are in a dysregulated state, one of the first things that tends to happen to people is you stop breathing, or you start breathing really shallowly. And so your relationship with your lungs becomes more dysregulated. And so I love that part of the harmonizing is kind of working with the breath. And what I found personally, whether it's doing Qigong or another practice, is that the more I can expand my breath, the more I can, I don't know if regulate is the right word. I think expand is probably a better word, my breath, and make it easeful, the more creative I can be. Because I also see this with my clients where they don't have to be talking about anything related to trauma, just the stress of like, oh my gosh, I want to create. I'll notice like their body begins to like, shrink in, and I see the breath become more shallow, and it's, right up in the chest, and they're not really getting air, because there can be something about that scarcity thinking or that scarcity experience that shrinks our energy.
Right. Yeah. So with any fear contraction, the somatic, movement of fear, I can stand up, is a closing in, and that's caving in on the organ system. So fear and also unresolved grief, in the Chinese system, we've probably read a lot about the grief that the lungs can carry and hold. And so, the practices of slowly expanding. So, in Qigong, there are times where we will use kind of a breath cue, but a lot of times, because the movement itself is naturally expanding and opening the tissues and the spaces and the fluids, generally in Qigong, we're allowing the breath to naturally expand on its own until you feel comfortable enough adding a little bit more to that, to your breath, because the movements alone, if we're doing a movement in Qigong, for example, if I open up, just that alone is doing so much. We don't want to overwhelm the system.
Yeah.
So that's why starting with a nice, very simple, slow movement that is close together, and then from there, opening up little by little in the practice is the way that we train that into start to teach resilience in the lung system and the breath.
Yeah, I love that. It's all about going slow, being slow, progressing slowly, having patience, something that I was brought into this incarnation to learn.
Right, right.
Who is a triple fire sign, an Aries. It's like
Wow.
I can be like, yes, go fast.
Right.
And I've
Wow.
had to learn that patience piece. And so all of the practices that I've experienced that you have taught are helping me learn that. So I'm so grateful. And I wonder, we've talked, I think, at a more theoretical level about these concepts, but I think sometimes when we can get really concrete with activities, that brings it home for people. So could we go ahead
Yeah.
and do this exercise, and then we'll continue the conversation?
Yeah. So I should preface this a little bit because before we start, I just want to talk about basically there are kind of three levels of, in a way, like the Qigong cultivation works. We can break it down into three for this podcast. First level is kind of a level of letting go and release. And you've done sometimes, you'll see people jiggling, and we'll do a little bit of that, but there's that level where we're taking in chi and we're really focusing our attention on letting go and releasing a little bit. And then from there, since we've released and we've cleared the container, if you will, then we have space to begin to resource the container. So that sometimes referred to as chi building or chi resourcing. And so we'll do a little bit of that in this practice as well. Chi resourcing is a good state when you've already felt like you've done a lot of the work, especially on trauma imprints, things like that. Not that it's not to be used all the time either, but when I finished doing at least enough work on releasing out, I then started to feel the chi circulating much more potent in my system. So from that angle, we need to build chi, keep building chi, and sustain chi on a daily basis, definitely. And those practices are very foundational, but very potent. Can be 5-minute practices, which we'll do today. And then the third level is really after we've built the chi and we have the chi there, we have the medicine, in the container. That's the medicine. Then we start to move and prescribe ourselves the medicine in our body. And that's the idea that we now have the medicine there. Now we have use a method to prescribe the body part, prescribe the organ. And in this way, this is how Qigong prescriptions work. When we're able to understand, how to mix the medicine, just like in pharmaceuticals, they mix the medicine. In the physical realm, the herbalist mix the medicine, the pharmaceutical, they're all mixed. Then they say, here, you have to take the medicine now. You have to know what you do. Drink the medicine down. We're drinking the chi down in different parts of our body. So it's the same concept, and that's the level of chi circulation. But for today, what I want to do is I want to do just a simple way to resource and build our chi in our dantian. And I should say that the dantian, without defining it, because it is below the navel, but it has no perfect location. Dantian, the literal definition is the effect of the elixir field. Sometimes we call it the cauldron, or it can be the medicine pot, or the sea of chi, this place where mind and body merge. In embryology, it's also looked at as the first place where the sperm and the egg met. So we want to build this container up because this is the center and the oneness. And from here, if we have that container, we have some resource there, then we can start to circulate the chi. So how do we build the dantian? If we're sitting, and I'll try to move the camera so you can see better here. So I'm sitting on a chair, so it's really important to make sure that your knees are not, see that I'm on a chair there. So you don't want your knees to be up above your waist. You want your toes to have a nice little baby grip. So they're touching, they're contacting the earth. And so you can think of it as like now there's a tripod. So you're sitting in a chair, we do it like this. Toes are connected, sits bones are connected, that's a tripod there. So we have stability and connection to earth. It's going to rock really gently side to side. And remember that now that we're in movement and our body is beginning to move, we're adjusting harmony in our body through this vibration, this new frequency vibration. So everyone out there that's doing this exercise, just take time to feel into what feels good to you. Maybe rocking wants to be a little bit wider or a little bit faster. Maybe rocking feels safe and grounding to just go really slow and barely move back side to side. And bring your attention just below your navel, kind of deeper than skin level, really inside and above, just above your kind of your sits bones, deeper inside your body there. And you may feel some vertebrae cracking. That's all perfectly normal. That's the energy opening up space, having a little bit more room. And so you may feel a little bit more awareness in that area. And now that we've done side to side, we're going to go front to back and explore just rocking front to back. And you'll notice the cross has a center point. And just noticing if you feel that center point in your body, and that center point ideally is around, near, on, perfectly, as perfect as it can be, your dantian. Yeah, and we'll slowly come to a stop and just notice what it feels like in your body now that you've connected with your dantian, this cauldron or this sacred medicine pot.
And I noticed for myself that there was this point where my muscles were contracting, like this point as we were doing, that's helping me find that point of dantian inside myself. And I also noticed almost like a coolness in that area, or like a different sensation in the energy based on the movements that we've done so far.
Great. And so I can comment on coolness for the viewers that experience coolness and hotness in the practices. When there is an energy that has some kind of more extreme, like heat or cold, when we use movements, vibrations, breath, just like when like a dam, if there's like rocks in a creek and one of the rocks comes away, the water starts gushing through, and then all of a sudden the creek really is harmonized more. It's not impeded or stagnant. When that happens in the body, where there was cold, the heat comes in and it reharmonizes that area of the body or the cold. So it doesn't matter either way. But that's why that phenomena is healing. Our body is moving us toward harmony by counteracting an imbalance of hot or cold with the opposite. So that's how what you can experience that in qigong quite a bit, especially in places where there has been injuries, pain, trauma imprints, things like that. So just noticing that. Yeah, and now from here we're able to begin to fill up the qi and the dantian. We've found where it is. And so we'll do a simple practice to do this. There's a few ways we can do this. So one is just leave your hands by your side and down. So I'm just letting my hands just hang down the side here. You can also place your hands over top of each other and on your dantian. So I can show you, like, just cross and hold here as well. So either way, whatever feels comfortable to you. And then we're going to seal what we call the lower bridge. So to do this, press your lower belly back and feel what that feels like. And this is going to lift up the perineum, or the tissue between your legs. So feel what that feels like. Sucking in the lower belly will automatically lift that up, and that will keep the pot sealed, so we're not leaking the energy out. And then after you seal, you can just explore here, soften the belly a little bit more, but maintain that seal. So first kind of suck in the lower belly and then soften the belly a little, but maintain the seal. And we don't want to be slumped over, obviously, right? We want to be upright, spine is straight. And then we want to put our tongue behind the upper tooth ridge, behind your teeth. So it just gently rests behind the upper tooth ridge, not pressing or pushing, just there. And that's going to connect the upper bridge. So now we have created this seal in both ends so that the energy stays inside so we can fill. And in order to also add a little space in the spine, imagine all the hairs of your head lifting up and lifting out, connecting to the stars. And imagine your crown opening up like a flower, lifting up, making space in the vertebrae for this chi to come down into and through enlightened spine. And next inhale, imagine chi like sunlight surrounding you and entering into your body from every direction through all the pores of your skin. As you exhale, condensing it and gathering it into your dantian, your lower belly. And simply allow your breath to find its own natural depth. Nothing to change, nothing to fix, just simply being with whatever breath arises. And maintaining attention on your dantian with each breath. If a thought arises, just simply letting it pass like a shooting star, coming back to your dantian. And if you had your eyes closed, you can slowly open your eyes and orient to the space
Hmm.
and just notice what's the same or different. Yeah, so chi resourcing. I use a practice like this in the mornings a lot if I have 5 minutes, and it's accessible at any time. And of course, after a practice like this, if you're busy and you're moving, the chi will naturally circulate. So, not necessary to do a qigong form after this. Of course, in the practice, that's what we would do, but in everyday life, you can apply this by just resourcing so you have a little more energy to go do what you're doing for the day.
Yeah, I love this because so many of us have been conditioned in capitalistic society, especially, to just get up and go, start your to do list
Right.
before you even get out of the bed. And these preparatory practices ensure that one, we're starting from that place of being harmonized, and two, that we actually have the energy to be able to go and do whatever it is that the day requires from a place of peace and ease.
Absolutely. And another thing is, this is a lot cheaper than going to get your morning coffee. And it packs even, I would say, much more punch than the morning coffee once you start to learn the routine and implement this. So, yeah, save money and also save the effects of the nervous system on everyday coffee intake.
I am going to admit that I do happen to love a very good cup of
I,
coffee.
I do too. I do too, Lisa. It's okay. But yeah, it does have a very big impact on the amount of energy that you can carry with you in the mornings too, just as coffee does. So
So, writers, if you're thinking about, okay, what is a practice that I could do that expands my creative energy, this might be a great way to start your writing practice.
absolutely. And I want to comment too that some of the practices too, Lisa, I know I think we talked about this about how you can somatically write. Here's the finger. We use a finger like this as if we're having energy come through our fingers to write, and we do movements and we draw energetically with our body. And some of the symbols we use, like a dragon symbol or other symbols, we're using that as a way to resource and the way to take in and connect it to those energies and resource more creativity. So it's somatic practices, we in qigong we do use moving from the dantian and actually visualizing, drawing a symbol like that as well. So that could be after a practice like the resourcing, you could even do that and then go into writing as well.
I love that. I'm going to ask you a question, and I think I'm really trying to attend to the people who are avid listeners who are also trauma survivors. And I'm always curious about my own experience when I'm doing something. And I feel like whatever emotions come up, they're just information and they're important. Right. And what I found for myself sometimes, and this is nothing against you, Jay, right? This is not about how you do things because you are a great teacher. I wouldn't have you on the podcast otherwise. But that sometimes with these early practices, I think especially the releasing practices, I will find for myself that if they go on what my nervous system perceives as too long, I will experience a sense of, I'm bored. Like, this is boring to me. Can we hurry up and get to whatever is next? And again, I just find that to be interesting because I think it's telling me something about my nervous system or perhaps like how the energy is moving. And I'm curious to know what your insight is.
The earth is 70% water. Our bodies are 70% water. Kind of like the root of the medicine is a water, like the foundation of it all. So some of the times when we feel that boredom, it can be a sign, and not to say anything against your practices, but can be a sign that, we can go a little bit deeper and explore that boredom and see how much more of a foundation we can actually explore. Because the more that the foundation is set and the water is calm and the earth is calm, the same in our body, then from that can sprout new life energy and strong new life energy. And so from a qigong perspective, to stay in the boringness of meditation sometimes and stay in the boringness of standing meditation and qigong and breathing and expanding the body but not doing much at all is really a huge foundation so that creativity can spawn from that. I think you said the fallow part,
Yeah.
we have to go into that state of very, very, very slowness to have that strong life energy sprout out and have the dormant periods. And in those dormant periods, sure, it's so fun to do an awesome moving dragon, qigong, tiger, tai chis, and all these, but we have to get away from that attachment to the excitement of all those practices and go into that state of dormancy for a while to rebuild. That's what we're doing in the dantian too, in our chi resourcing. We have to keep refilling that so that we can come back again and again and have the enthusiasm and the life energy with our practice or with whatever we're doing in life. And creativity absolutely spawns from that.
Yeah, so I'm going to do a little interpreting based on my own experience, which you don't necessarily know, and you can tell me right on or maybe this.
Sure.
And know that when it comes to these things, I'm an open book. My listeners know I talk about these things. So when I think about my own experience and the slowness that you're talking about, a challenge point for me personally is rest. I will say that rest, slowness is a challenge. It's really hard for me. And there's a wide variety of reasons why that's the case, which we're not going to go into today. But I think that when I find that experience of like, oh, I'm bored with this. Like, can we hurry up and get to something fast? There's some way that my nervous system is coming to this sticky point or this level of discomfort with rest or with slowness. And it's important, as you said, to pay attention to that and say, okay, well, can you do a little more, right? Can you expand your tolerance for this experience? Because in the case of myself with sucking at rest, I'll just say I do struggle with that. Sometimes when you talk about like napping, oh my gosh, I'm like, no, not a nap. Like
Right.
it really is that challenging for me, but it's also what I need, right? Sometimes the things that we resist are
Yeah.
the medicine that we actually need.
Absolutely. And the practices, I think, even emphasize, bring that out is the word. The practices show that to us as well. And so, traditionally, a lot of the traditional training would be, in the old Chinese way, would be the teacher would have sort of a test for you. And you'd stand there in meditation and And I always felt that that was kind of an old fashioned way of doing things that, of course, doesn't translate well to anything we talk about on the podcast with building resilience or all of the new science on how to repair the nervous system, right? So really, going slow. And I think the important part here is looking for the resources and being honest with yourself as you are, and saying, okay, what resources do I have to slow down? There are things like yawning that can help us slow down. There are things like the rocking. If our chi is ascended and we're in a high chi state, we can rock gently to come down, or even jiggle.
Yeah.
Jiggling can bring the chi down. Any vibration, any change in vibration in our body, or humming, or ways that we use sound, any vibration has the potential to bring energy down or up depending on how we apply it. So it depends on how are we going to use the medicine of vibration. You go to ecstatic dance, there's music playing. Most of the time, that chi is going to ascend.
Yeah.
But if you're in a quiet, safe space, you can decide, oh, I need my chi to descend, or I need my chi to ascend right now. How do I want to use this as medicine, this vibration? So that's really helpful when it comes to wanting to rest. If you're in that state and you can't just go rest down on the bed, use the vibration or use the humming to slowly transform out of one state into the other. It is the medium for which you can use to change states. And a lot of people that went through, traumas, usually they didn't have a medium to get from point A to point B. There was no way to see point B. And so, when there's a trauma that happened, we should be able to run, we should be able to, flight
Yeah.
or discharge in that moment as soon as we can. If we didn't have that opportunity to vibrate and shift that energy, it stayed inside the nervous system. So from the Qigong, same perspective, every day with so much happening, we can use the vibrations to transform, not just for an extreme fight or flight situation, but everyday events that are happening
Yes.
that are taking us out of our base, or whatever is happening, daily basis. So I'd say that's the way to move to rest, is find a way to transition slowly into rest if you need, through vibration.
And that has been one of my major practices that I have been using. And what I would say to listeners is that if you are doing Qigong, if you try this practice or you try anything, right? It doesn't matter if it's meditation or even your writing practice, and you come up against these emotions where you're like, oh, I feel uncomfortable. I don't want to do it. Or, doesn't matter what it is. We can often send ourselves the message, I'm doing it wrong, or this doesn't work for me. And my invitation to you is to say, be curious about what that experience is. Be really curious and say, oh, could it be that this is teaching you something, right? How is this your teacher versus how is it that this is not for you? And I can say, no is always a complete sentence, and sometimes that is important, but
Yeah.
sometimes a minor yes is also important too.
So I can give you an example of kind of, it also has a cosmological resonance with spring energy and what you're talking about as well. Let's say that we've come across some kind of challenge, but we know that that challenge also is going to could serve us well. We're having trouble initiating that process. So it's in the springtime when seeds start to sprout. There's a certain amount of determination, motivation that seed needs to have to get through the earth, to break through and to come through with all these weeds fighting for space around it. Who knows what, right? That type of vibration is like a thunder. That thunder vibration, that energy, just like we hear thunder, also we have that same resonance in us. So that's why when we need to get something done, there's no reason why humans shouldn't be grunting and going and using these vibrations to add a little bit of determination to it. So from a somatic standpoint, moaning and groaning, grunting to initiate that process would be a perfectly understandable human characteristic, human behavior. Of course, in today's society with kids too, and for as long as we've seen for decades, even maybe, it's not easy for children to have the agency to be able to make these noises sometimes, depending on the parenting they're around. So that determination, that movement, that thunder vibration. In the spring, we use tapping, the tapping qigong in the spring to wake up everything in the body that was dormant to help wake it up. So that's another thunderous vibration. That's how Qigong also can be used cosmologically to resonate with the natural cycles of the seasons as well. In the spring practice, Qigong, we will use that motivation, the sound, more sounds and more tapping to bring up that energy that's rising up. So we'll use more of that vibration and sound. We'll rise the energy up, right? So that's kind of part related to your question. How do we resonate with energy and not feel? I think the word he used was there's a strong no sometimes, but sometimes there's a yes that doesn't want to be a yes, but needs to be a
Right.
yes. And that's how we can give ourselves the medicine to make that happen and to encourage our body to do that, to follow us and what we need in our lives. So that's why the somatics of it, implementing that makes the body, makes everything a lot easier to flow with rather than to resist as well, especially when it comes to needs.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm curious as we begin to wrap up, you know, this is going to take place just before the solstice. So I think about a week is going to go by. So if we think about the summer solstice is coming, so tapping is a great exercise you can do in the spring. What would you recommend for writers who are wanting to capitalize on this energy, on what they need, while thinking about that next season that's about to arrive?
So, first of all, the equinox, both the winter and the spring equinox means equal nights or equal energy. So, when we're talking about spring and fall, well, remember that the equinox in the Gregorian calendar is the beginning, but the equinox really is the middle of the energy
Yes.
of that season. So when we get to the solstices, then they're the peak energy in the summer of like fire energy, and then the peak energy of water in the winter. And what does that mean for our body? That means that no matter what the temperature is different. It does matter a little bit the temperature, but the main thing is the energy is peaking at the solstices. So our body is now reacting on an unconscious level to that amount of energy that is extreme at the solstices. So that's why you hear a lot in the meditation realm of, oh, it's winter and we've got to just meditate all winter long. And that's a water element and all of this. And that's understandable. But what I find is that it's kind of slacks off in the summertime. People get excited, the energy keeps is stronger. But
Yeah.
really, there's a place for that deeper, slowing down, which really is starting now. Anytime we move closer to the solstice, whether just before or just after, that's a real big time for really slowing down the practices and going and honoring our body's time to recharge. I usually suggest in Qigong to doing the practices in the morning, the movement, and then the rest of the day, going slower. Whereas in the spring and fall, I can do movement all day long. I feel great, and you have a lot more energy that's balanced. But yeah, peak summer, peak winter, definitely overall cosmologically would be better to go real slow to help our body balance out that energy, the cosmological energy coming in. And then it all depends on, our level of the food that we're eating, the chi we're taking in from the outside too, and from people around us and imprints of trauma. So all those are factors, but that's a general cosmological resonance.
Well, I am going to soak in this invitation to go slow, to rest, to be present as we prepare for this. And I want to thank you so much for all of the generous information that you've shared with us. It's truly been a gift. And if people want to connect with you, if they have questions, they want to learn more about the work you do, because you do offer online Qigong classes, what are the best ways for people to connect with you?
So yeah, so I send out invites to the Qigong classes through my website. So I think www.jaydemaio, my name.com. Just email me from there, and then I'll have your email to put on my mailers. I mail out, the workshop information through my mailing list. So that'd be great to connect through there. And of course, if there's private lessons, anything like that, you can find on my website too. You can just sign up online to come into the studio with me, whether it's for bodywork or Qigong as well. And then Instagram, I don't use social media much, but sometimes I'll post something on Instagram. Alter Native Medicine is my name on those social media platforms. So
Well, and Jay's website and his social media handle will be in the show notes. So if you miss that, it is an easy click away. Well, Jay, thank you again for being on the podcast. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for having me. It's been great. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for listening. If you'd like to learn more about Jay, his work with QiGong, or his online classes, please see the show notes for this episode. But before you go, I would love it if you would text the show if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or leave a comment on YouTube with the answer to the following question. Are you someone who struggles with rest too? And if you're not, how do you give yourself permission to rest more? I would love to hear your thoughts on this matter because it's something I deal with all the time. And speaking of your thoughts on the podcast, I'd like to give a quick shout out to Candace Coakley, who shared the major aha she had after listening to my episode with Maha Mamish on human design. That was a huge treat. And Colleen Golofshan and Priscilla Wrights, who shared that my episode with Amy Fish gave them so much hope. And thanks, Priscilla, for your kind words about my recent webinar with Jane Friedman. I'm so honored that you attended, and I'm so excited for the webinars I have planned for the fall, so stay tuned. And listeners, if you haven't contacted the show, I'd love to hear from you too. Until next time, remember that your story matters, and as you work on it, you change lives, especially your own. That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. I truly couldn't do this podcast without your support. If you love this episode, here are 3 simple ways you can keep this show thriving. 1, subscribe or follow Writing Your Resilience on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube so you never miss an episode. 2, leave a 5-star review to help others discover the podcast. 3, join my engaged writing community by signing up for the Writing Your Resilience newsletter. As a thank you, you'll receive a free copy of Write More, Fret Less, a toolkit for gaslight proofing your writing practice. Have feedback for the show, a topic you'd love me to cover, or questions you'd like me to answer? Drop a comment on YouTube, text the show, or email me at writingyourresiliencepodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, keep writing, keep growing, and keep showing up for yourself. Your story matters, and I am so proud to be writing alongside you.